Hello and welcome back to my newest election prediction between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. And you might be looking at this map and saying, wait, most of these states are already filled in. Why is that? Well, it's because I'm not going to waste your time talking about the states that I know will go to Trump or the states that I know will go to Harris. I know Ohio will go to Trump, I know Minnesota will go to Harris, etc. So I'm not going to be talking about them. Instead, I'm going to be talking about the toss-up states, which are the states that can go to Trump or can go to Harris, and I wouldn't be surprised by either. And these toss-up states, starting from West Coast to East Coast, are Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Georgia, North Carolina, Virginia, and Pennsylvania. And these states and their combined 106 electoral votes will ultimately decide this election. So without further ado, make sure to like and subscribe in order to join the 14% if you want any more predictions like this one. And in any case, let's get back to the video. So I'm going to go back to doing the news, which is something that I haven't been really doing lately. But we have an important piece of news, and it was the VP debate between Tim Walz and JD Vance. And in the debate, Tim Walz and JD Vance were extremely cordial, which some people actually didn't expect. The media has not been a fan of JD Vance. On the other hand, the media has been a big fan of Tim Walz. So many people going into this debate expected Tim Walz to dominate JD Vance, especially since the media coverage on him has been much more promising. However, people were surprised when they saw that Vance actually beat Tim Walz in the debate. In fact, according to 51% of people from a CNN poll, and we know that most people responding to CNN polls are Democrats, 51% of these people said that JD Vance won the debate. This is often due to JD Vance talking about his own upbringing and basically pinning himself as this guy that is not what the media portrays him. He basically explained himself as this guy who grew up in a lower class household and is now part of the Republican Party. Tim Walz put himself as the average guy. Basically, I'm from Minnesota, this is what I did in Minnesota, I'm the governor of Minnesota, and I am average. That's what Tim Walz wanted to basically portray. And people more so resonated with Vance's point of view, saying that Vance won the debate, with this one poll even saying he was +7 in the debate. And if we look further, we can see that JD Vance before the debate was largely unfavorable. And now after the debate, he is even more favorable than he is unfavorable. So we can see that the debate really shifted optics on JD Vance and got more people liking him than disliking him. On the other hand, most people liked Tim Walz before the debate. Now more people like him than ever before, but still he did not have as much of a flip as JD Vance did. JD Vance had pretty much an utter shift in the eyes of the people towards favorability from unfavorability, whereas Tim Walz just remained favorable. And lastly, we see this opinion article saying that this author was wrong about Vance. Many people are saying, wow, the media's portrayal of Vance is not necessarily accurate after seeing that debate performance. Now people think that instead of Vance dragging Trump down, he can actually help Trump win and supplement Trump's victory. So Trump picking Vance makes a lot more sense, especially after the VP debate. So will the debate and general other circumstances actually change this election? Well, I don't really think so. But in any case, we can see now that it's October where the polls are lying, what the polls are saying, and who will win this election. Because remember, we are practically just a month away. We can see 32 days until this election. So now, without further ado, let's get started. And we'll start with the state of Virginia. So Virginia is a state that was not seen as a swing state early in this election. But now Trump is given a 13% chance at winning in the state. And some people wonder, why is that? Well, when we look at the polls, Trump has narrowed the gap between him and Harris in the state of Virginia. And while a few polls do have Harris largely in the lead, some polls have it as an even race, essentially a dead heat. So while Harris has pulled away in the state of Virginia, it is not without question that Trump has a chance in the state. But still, Harris will likely win the state, getting its 13 electoral votes, bringing her 7 above Donald Trump. However, Trump has been pulling ahead in 2 distinct regions, one being the Southeast, particularly the state of Georgia, and the other being the Southwest, particularly the state of Arizona. This is due to Trump doing better among minority populations. For example, he does better among the Hispanic population in the United States than he did in the past. Remember, in the past, he did not do well with this specific population, leading him to losing Arizona and losing states like New Mexico by large margins, and with Texas even being somewhat close. But now polls have a different story where Trump is doing better among minorities, and this is showing. We can see in the state of Arizona, Trump pulled ahead, and he is up by +1 according to the most recent poll. And while this one poll has Harris up by +2, the majority of polls that have been conducted in the past few weeks have Trump in the lead. And we can see that Trump has almost a 64% chance in the state. And this doesn't shock me considering the state is traditionally a Republican state. The fact that it even went Democrat in 2020 is shocking to me. But now we can see that Trump wins Arizona, bringing himself to 230 electoral votes. And the next state, like I said, was the state of Georgia. And this is another state where Trump is given a high chance according to the betting markets. In fact, he did win it in 2016 by over 5, but Biden shifted it back to his camp by another 5 percentage points, winning it by less than a percentage point in 2020. However, the polls in Georgia tell a different story than they have in the past, with Trump pulling ahead. While this one poll is even, Trump leads in most polls in the state of Georgia. So now we can see that Trump leads in both Arizona and Georgia, bringing him up to 246 electoral votes. And our next state will be similarly close, but it will go to Kamala Harris. And this is the state of Michigan. We can see in recent polls in Michigan, Harris leads by an average of less than a percentage point, which doesn't differ too much from the result in 2020 or 2016, where both times it was decided by less than the margin of error for polls, which is 3 percentage points. Will the debate really have an impact on the state of Michigan? Well, I don't really think so. Walz and Vance didn't really change many voters' minds on the conflict in Gaza, particularly with the state of Michigan. And I think it will still go to Kamala Harris slash Tim Walz, but by narrow margins. And now with our final 4 states, I think that Harris will win the state of Nevada. So Nevada has large union support, particularly in Vegas, which is its most populated city. And even though the rural regions do vote for Trump in wide margins, Vegas leads to Nevada going to Kamala Harris. And Nevada tilts towards Kamala Harris, bringing her 1 electoral vote above Donald Trump. And if you don't believe me, let's look at these polls. The polls in Nevada have Harris doing better than she did in the state of Michigan, surprisingly, because Nevada really wasn't seen as a Harris state. Not even by the betting markets. The betting markets have it barely going to Kamala Harris. And you can see in the last week alone, it shifted up 3% for her. So before that, it was going to Donald Trump. So the polls didn't really have Harris in the lead as much as they had her in the lead in Michigan. And we can see in Michigan, I didn't really talk about this specifically that much, but Harris has dropped a whopping 8% in the past week in Michigan. And this is likely due to Harris's policy positions being more outspoken than they were in the past, so voters are now having their own opinions on Harris rather than voting on the general vibe of Harris. They now know her specific policy positions, and some voters don't like her, which leads to her having a major fall in the polls in the state of Michigan. We can see that it is now going to Trump according to some polls. But regardless, Harris still leads in Michigan, and she also leads in Nevada. Nevada has pretty much the opposite effect of Michigan, where Harris was losing in the polls from the past, but now she is leading in most of the polls. So she leads in Nevada, bringing herself to 247 electoral votes to Trump's 246. And now we get to the state of North Carolina, where Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson has found himself in some trouble. This has led to a sharp decline for Donald Trump in terms of the polls in North Carolina. However, he still leads in the state. It is a state that he won against Biden and also a state that he won against Hillary Clinton. He will likely win the state in 2024, as even though there is the consensus that Mark Robinson will not win the governor election, and many people do not like Robinson, still it won't really change many voters' minds on Donald Trump. As remember, down ballot candidates don't really affect up ballot candidates as much as up ballot candidates affect down ballot candidates. So while the state would originally not have been this much of a toss up, it is still pretty much a toss up due to Mark Robinson, but Trump will still win the state. And now he needs to win one of these two remaining states to win this election. And this is the Rust Belt we're talking about. This is an area that usually goes to Democrats, but in 2016, Trump was able to flip three of the states in this region towards himself. And in 2024, the polls in Wisconsin are narrowing up, where Harris is still leading by almost 2 percentage points, but recent polls do have Trump doing better. Still, Harris has almost a 57% chance of winning the state, and she gets Wisconsin. And now the election hinges on the state of Pennsylvania with its 19 electoral votes. The state of Pennsylvania is basically decided on the issue of fracking. Now Harris supports fracking, but in the past she really didn't. Now she supports fracking, but due to this inconsistency, I think many rural voters and many voters that are not in the city of Philadelphia will vote for Donald Trump. But remember that line, not from Philadelphia, because 90% of voters from Philadelphia will usually vote for Kamala Harris. Just look at this graph from Biden. Biden won most of Philadelphia by a large margin. In fact, he got 81% of voters in the city of Philadelphia, and Harris will likely do similarly, if not better. However, I think Trump will do better among rural populations as Biden was uniquely able to basically connect with rural voters, especially considering he was from Scranton himself. And if we look at polls in the state of Pennsylvania, they are shifting towards Donald Trump, where Trump is now leading in most polls. And in fact, according to the betting markets, Trump is narrowly leading. So I do think due to these trends and polls, Trump will win in the state of Pennsylvania, essentially winning this election 281 to 257. So if you want more of these videos, make sure to like and subscribe. And thank you for watching. Also, if you have any comments, criticisms, or concerns, make sure to type them in the comments. Anyway, thank you.